is a very important part of English literature, so must listen carefully. Theatre of the absurd, a form of drama that emphasizes the absurdity of human existence by employing disjointed, repetitious, and meaningless dialogue and confusing situations and plots that lack realistic incidents. Next is aesthetic ideology. It offers the definitive resources. Aesthetic offers the definitive resource to be man's thoughts on philosophy, politics and history. The texts collected here were written or delivered as lectures during the last years of D. Man's life between 1917 and 1983. In French and English literature, a 19th century movement that maintained art needs serve no moral or ethical purpose. Dear friends, you are learning different type of things. In the past time, in the criticism, you have heard Aristotelian and Platonic theory. As per the Platonic theory, you have understand that true love was the Platonic love as per the notion of Plato. But according to the thought of Aristotle, it was totally different and reverse. So dear friends, for understanding the truth of criticism, you must listen the stories. Affective fallacy, a term in new criticism. A term in new criticism used to describe the error from a new critical perspective of analyzing a work of literature in terms of its impact upon a reader. The critics William Wimsatt and Monroe Beardsley coined the term. Intentional fallacy lies in any attempt to see the meaning of a work as residing in the intention of the author. Wimsatt's The Verbal Icon, 1954. These important literary terms and what important works that we have used, you must note down, keep down in your mind for understanding the essence of these literary terms. In that first definition of the affective fallacy, we have used the word to describe the error. The theory of alienation affect was put forward by Bertolt Brecht. Alienation effect means that the familiar contents are presented in an unfamiliar way to get a new effect so that the audience does not empathize with the story of a drama and can think profound about the drama. Alienation effect. In his epic theatre of the 1920s and later on, the dramatist Bertolt Brecht adapted the Russian formalist concept of defamiliarization into what he called the alienation effect. The German term is also translated estrangement effect or distancing effect. Dear friends, these terms are really knowledgeable and informative for our youngsters of literature, learners of English, Next is allegory, a story, poem or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one, a type of narrative in which the surface story reflects at least one other meaning. Animal Farm by George Orwell is an allegory that uses animals. Fairy Queen, a masterpiece of Edmund Spenser, is a moral allegory. Johann Bunyan Pilgrim's Progress is an example of spiritual allegory. John Dryden's Absalom and Ahithophel, 1681, political allegory. So these are the chief important allegories that was written allegorically, and the characters were selected from the Holy Bible. This is the use of the different characters, and they play the different roles substitutionally, alternatively and optionally. So these terms must be understood by our students, those who are preparing their NET examination. They are going to appear, and they have been appeared. They must try to face and listen these kind of political, literary, economical terms of English literature. Dear friends, it is the right time, right place, right action. If you want to make yourself able to feel natural in English learning modules like reading, speaking, listening and writing English correctly, naturally, accurately, then you must prepare yourself. You must make your mind up in describing the simple objectives around you, that you see around you. Three kinds of noun our students and scholars study. What are they? In the form of person, place and thing. They can easily define. By their outwardnesses, they can count number of features. Everything has its own feature. Everything has its own characteristic. In the form of size, shape, color, figure. So you can speak easily 5 to 10 lines about any objective, about any object or thing. Dear friends, if you are to describe any person, then you can select some ready-made expressions for them. And if you are to define your hometown and place, that also can be described very easily by the presence of your mind. If you keep your presence of thought in present, then definitely you will thank God for this presence. Thanking God is the really true motive of our soul. If the power and speed of social media is so fastest, highest, then how is the power of that God who has made it? How is the power of that mind who was provided by that superspiritual power of God? That is uncounted, numberless. For that our present Prime Minister advocated and appealed to the worldly people through the role model of Swami Vivekananda. He addressed the worldly people that my nation is known by its character, not by color and other outwardnesses. So it is the true identity of our culture that was addressed by our present Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, and he is completing the remaining works of Swami Vivekananda. Truly, it is the true aim of our own nationalistic and patriotistic persons. Dear friends, keep continue your presence for making your thoughts healthy, wealthy and holistic. This is the true aim of life. There are so many literary terms you will read in English literature. Those who are appearing in UGC NET, TGT, PGT NVS, DSSSB. So there are different exams, you can appear in them if you have qualified and eligible for appearing in that examinations. There are some famous another literary terms. An exemplum. An exemplum is a story told as a particular instance of the general theme in a religious sermon. The device was popular in the Middle Ages. The device was popular in the Middle Ages when extensive collections of example, some historical, some legendary, were prepared for use by preachers. In Chaucer's The Pardoner's Tale, the pardoner preaching on the theme, greed is the root of all evil. It is being explained in the form of results of all our holy religions that was brought by Gautam Buddha, Mahavir Swami. They told clearly this thing. Greed is the root of all evil. Next is parable, a simple story used to illustrate a moral or spiritual lessons told by Jesus in the Gospels. Jesus expressed different thoughts and ideas autobiographically, whatsoever came in his mind, what experiences he collected throughout his lifetime, he presented them truly and brought frankness, stored ideas by having spade thoughts. Dear friends, it is not the illusion of the personalities. If they keep the picture of the Jesus in their mind, really a lot of contradictions and conflictions. Really, we will uproot and abolish from our society and nation at the international level and world level, which is the great need of this present time. Dear friends, keep continuing your presence. This will make you healthy, wealthy and wise. A fable, also called an apologue, is a short narrative in prose or verse that exemplifies an abstract moral thesis or principle of human behavior. Usually at its conclusion, either the narrator or none of the characters states the moral in the form of an epigram. You are getting famous vocabulary, important vocabulary from this term, a fable, apologue. Also called an apologue is a short narrative. It is the second name of fable. Next is beast fable, in which animals talk and act like the human types they represent. In the familiar fable of the fox and the grapes, the fox, after exerting all his wiles to get the grapes, hanging pond his reach, but in vain, concludes that they are probably sure. Anyway, moral is that human beings belittle what they cannot get. Dear friends, there is an important word, that is animals talk, which represents the whole term beast fable, and it will help you to understand the gist of the term. Next is alliteration. It is very simple and common term that is used by our English scholars, literary giants. A series of words begin with the same consonant sound. A Example is, a classic example is the sailed seashells by the seashore. Another fan favorite is Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled papers. Alliteration is meant to be more than a tongue twister, like that pink pills for pale people. Consonance is the repetition of a sequence of two or more consonants, but with a change in the intervening vowel. Live, love, lean, alone. Next is allusion. Allusion is a passing reference without explicit identification of a literary or historical person, place or event, or to another literary passages. Dear friends, in alliteration there are important words that you have to note down. Begin with same consonants. Peter Piper picked a peak. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled papers. Or another example is pink pills for pale people. So many other examples you can quote from the literary works of our different novelists, dramatists, poets, those who have used consonance is the repetition of a sequence of two or more consonants, but with a change in the intervening vowel, like live, love, lean, alone. This is a great example of consonance. Two or more consonants, sequence of two or more consonants intervening. Next is allusion. What is allusion? Perhaps you have heard this literary term very commonly. Allusion is a passing reference without explicit identification. Literary or historical person, place or event to another literary passage. Dear friends, your presence is praiseworthy in listening the different terminologies. These literary terminologies will make you recollect and remember the energy of the different words of English literature, which is greatly required. The presence of our mind and heart. If these two are being agreed at one single point for getting success, then definitely you will get success. This is the unique formula for getting success. Next is assonance. Assonance is the repetition of identical or similar vowels. Identical or similar vowels. Especially, dear friends, especially in stressed syllables in a sequence of nearby words. Note the recurrent long in the opening lines of Keats. Ode on a Grecian urn, 1820. Though still unravished bride of quietness, though foster child of silence and slow time. In it, some important words are used to define that are similar vowels and stressed syllables. In a sequence of nearby words, note the recurrent long in the opening lines of Keats. When you will go through the poems and writings of Keats, you will feel a strong attachment of the romantic age, who belonged from the romantic age, and he wrote at one place, art is long, life is short. Beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. These are some of the chief important words, thoughts and ideas of the literary giant of Romanticism. What is ambiguity? The quality of being open to more than one interpretation, connect, exactness. In ordinary uses, ambiguity is applied to fault in style. The use of a vague or equivocal term or expression. Precision and particularity of preference. Since William Amsden published 7 types of ambiguity in 1930. Dear friends, you are listening again. Explanation, interpretation of the ambiguity is inexactness. To more than one interpretation, inexactness. Next important word is William Amsden. Dear friends, our next term is in waiting now. Continue your presence for knowing the truth of language to literature. How our grammar influences and provides the complete information of the literature, our scholars must understand it. If they don't know the accuracies of the grammar, the concept of English grammar, foundation of English grammar and literature, until and unless they will not understand these things, they cannot be able to get the complete knowledge of culture of the different nations throughout the world. Those who are studying British and American literature, for knowing the truth of that countries, it is very necessary that we are to be firstly good in grammar. Actually, there are many forms of English: Spanish, Canadian, European, French, German. Numberless languages are there that are the symbol of their natives. And in the symbol of natives, this shows their particularities and specialties of the words. How the words are specially determination of the truth of the literature. It is simply said that literature is a mirror of our society. Literature contains language, culture, custom, ritual, our styles, language, standard, mean, mode, manners, skills. Everything is counted in literature. So dear friends, it is in the power of history that provides the glimpse of literature. So glimpse of history is really useful in knowing the literary truth. Continue your presence while listening the truth of literature. our all competitors, those who are going to appear in UGC, NET, TGT, PGT. Anti-hero, antithesis, archaism, archetypal criticism, portmanteau. These are some of the important literary terms that you must try to explain and understand with your own mind. Then you will be understandable. Then it will be understandable for you to define in your own words. So there is no question of lagging behind. There is no question of inferiority, deficiency, weakness in your mind. One is that anti-hero. What is it? A central character in a story, film or drama who lacks conventional heroic attributes, usually applied to writings in the period of disillusion after the Second World War. One is Defoe's Moll Flanders in 1722 is a thief and a prostitute. Number 2, John Wayne's Hurry on Down 1953. These are the important examples of anti-hero. Listen again. A central character in a story, film or drama which lacks conventional heroic attributes, usually applied to writings in the period of disillusion after the Second World War. Number 3 is Kingsley Ames' Lucky Jim, 1954. Number 4 is Yosharian in Joseph Heller's Sketch, 22, 1961. Next, number 5 is Humbert in Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, 1955. Number 6 is Tyrone Slothrop in Thomas Pinecone's Gravity's Rainbow, 1973. Dear friends, next is Samuel Beckett's dramas, The Tramp, Vladimir. And number 8 is Ham, who is the protagonist in the End Game in 1958. These are some of the famous anti-hero that are selected from the literary terms. So this literary term is really important from the exam point of view. You must go through in detail about all these titles that you have heard about the different constructions and compositions, and that were written especially after the Second World War. As you have heard about the Second World War, the USSR became the king of the world up to 1990. After 1990, the USA became the king of the world. But our India is the king of kings. Our India is the Duke of Dukes, Dutch of Duchess, God of Goddesses, Lord of Lordesses. Our Indian nation is the true father of all spiritual cultural countries. Dear friends, this is the spiritual values. These are the spiritual values of our nation that can be highlighted in the future for all the worldly futuristic generations. Our next term is antithesis. All of you have heard the antithesis. What is antithesis? A thesis against a person or thing that is the direct opposite of someone or something else. Examples of antithesis are: one is man proposes, God disposes. Source unknown. Next, number 2 is love is an ideal thing, marriage is a real thing, Goethe. Number 3 is to err is human, to forgive divine. It's of Alexander Pope. Next, number 4 is Alexander Pope's epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot in 1735, willing to want, not afraid to strike. Next, number 5 is restless or wrestles in 1759, chapter 26, marriage has many pains, but celibacy are the most pleasuresome. Dear friends, these are some of the examples of antithesis that are based on the man's mind, man's thought and ideas. These are the ways of our thinking. What kind of thoughts and ideas we have, and what are the ways through which we think, imagine, and consider the different situations, circumstances, and offerings. Dear friends, these are the two terms that you have effectively in English literature. Third is archaism, a thing that is very old or old-fashioned, especially an archaic word or a style of language or art. In some of the examples of these, one is Spenser in the Faerie Queene in 1590-96. Next, number 2 is Keats' Grecian urn as with breed or of marble men and maidens overwrought. Next, number 3 is Chaucer in Canterbury Tales. Number 4 is thou and thee. Here, thou and thee means you. These are the poetical words that are used in the form of very old or old-fashioned, especially an archaic word or style of language of art. Number 5 is thy soul was like a star. Thy means here your, and dwelt apart, London, 1802, by William Wordsworth. By William Wordsworth, who used archaic word or style of language of art. Thy soul was like a star. Thy soul was like a star and dwelt apart. London, 1802. Dear friends, how he defined our soul, you can understand through one of his poems. The word is too much with us. Next is archetypal literary criticism. Archetypal criticism is a type of critical theory. It interprets a text by focusing on recurring myths and archetypes from the Greek. Arche means beginning and typos means image, and character types in the literary works. Practitioners of various modes of archetypical criticism, in addition to Maud Watkin, were Z. Wilson Knight, Robert Graves, Philip Wheelwright, Richard Chase, Leslie Fiedler, and Joseph Campbell. Anatomy of Criticism, 1957, Northrop Fryer. Number 2 is Maud Watkin's Archetypical Patterns in Poetry, 1934. Next, number 3 is James G. Fraser, who's the Golden Bug, 1890 to 1915. These were some of the prominent practitioners of various of archetypical. Next is portmanteau word. Portmanteau word is a literary device in which two or more words are joined together to coin a new word which refers to a single concept. Two or more words are joined together to coin a new word, and it refers to a single concept. Coinage of portmanteau involves the linking and blending of two or more words, and the new word formed in the process shares the same meanings as the original words. What are the examples related to portmanteau word? Examples in English include turtle from chuckle and snort, smoke from smoke and fog, brunch from breakfast and lunch, mockumentary from mock and documentary, and spark from spoon and fork. A portmanteau is a suitcase that opens into house. Dear friends, these are the examples of portmanteau word. The term portmanteau was first used by Humpty Dumpty in Lewis Carroll. Two looking glass, well, slithy means lithy and slimy, and mimsy is flimsy and miserable. Dear friends, you are listening very important terms of English literature. Many other terms you will read in English literature that will take your mind towards that terms of your software of your mind that are beyond to reach, as you will read in John Donne's poems, metaphysics. What is metaphysics? Beyond to reach, unhidden and latent. Something is implied and beyond to reach. John Donne, who is known as the greatest, art is allusion, a reference within a literary text to some person, place or event outside the text. Allusion is a passing reference without explicit historical person, place or event or another literary work or passage. Don't act like a Romeo in front of her. Romeo is a reference to Shakespeare's Romeo, a passionate lover of Juliet. Next is ballad. Lyrical ballads you have read about William Wordsworth in 1798. Lyrical ballads was written by William Wordsworth in St. College after French Revolution in 1789. They wrote that spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings that are recollected in tranquility of heart. A ballad is a poem that tells a story, usually, but not always, in 4-line stanzas called quatrains, rhyme scheme, A-B. In popular music, the word ballad can also be referred to a slow, romantic or sentimental song. Folk ballads deal with themes of romantic passion, love affairs that end unhappily, or with political and military subjects. Bishop Thomas Percy's Relic of Ancient English Poetry, 1765. William Wordsworth and St. Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Lyrical Ballad, 1798. Coleridge's rhyme of the ancient air mariner. Walter Scott's proud Massey. Keats' La Vela, Dame Sans Mercy. There are so many examples that we can quote from the lyrical ballads. This is the super and fine example that was used by worshipper of nature, priest of nature, and it must be recollected, reminded by our English literary scholars. Dear friends, it will become your background of your stories, novels and dramas. These are the common terms which are commonly used by the different novelist, dramatist, poet in English literature to provide the strong foundation and fundamental to the language. It is very necessary to provide the power of word. Every literary term, it has its own significance for the ornamentation of the language, for figurizing the language, for the decoration of the language. It helps a lot. Dear friends, keep continue your presence. It is praiseworthy in knowing these important works, slow romantic. Next is bathos, a term. What is bathos? A term used to describe a writer's failure to elicit strong emotions, inadvertently producing laughter or ridicule. Bathos is a sudden change in speech or writing from a serious or important subject to a ridiculous or very ordinary one. The Beat generation was a literary movement started by a group of authors whose work explored and influenced American culture and politics in the post-war era. The group included such diverse figures as the poets Allen Ginsberg, Gregory Corso, and Lawrence Forlyghetti, and the novelist William Burroughs and Fack. Ginsberg's Hall, 1956. The Black Arts Movement, founded 1965. Was an African-American-led art movement. Dear friends, some important words that are being used in bathos are, what are important words? Sudden change in speech or writing from a serious or important subject to a ridiculous or very ordinary one. American culture. This is the symbol of American culture, and American words, vocabs, terms are used figuratively by Allen Ginsberg, Gregory Corso, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the novelist William Burroughs, and Jack Kerouac. Ginsberg, how 1956. Arts movement. It was started, initiated and began in 1965. In short, it is BAM. It was African American led art movement, active during with the 1960s, 1960s and 1970s through activism and art. BAM created new cultural institutions and conveyed uses by Black Pride, founder of this great term, was really praiseworthy in Africa and America, because these were the two colonies of the great imperialistic nations of the world. Our India, Asian and African, American, every country except Nepal were covered by the Britishers for ruling over them, and indirectly provided a lot of knowledge, advancements in science and super science to the worldly people. So dear friends, we should never think back and inferior whether our country was under the ruling of different foreigners, but it is a great symbol of our nation, unity in diversity. Time to time, they came in our India for exploiting, for creating injustice, for providing us different type of knowledge as well. So we are to be positive, because we have given them the platform to work. We have provided them